Hello guys, welcome back to another video. Today we are doing What If the Ottomans Reformed the Ottoman Empire Part 2, border changes, because you guys have already noticed. Ottomans go down to here and they own the Caucasus, which I don't think they owned last time. Well, here's the thing, I had a recording earlier that didn't really work out, and yeah, so Algeria border, I had to redo the map, and then I did another recording and I missed that. So in that recording they invaded Sudan, so did the North African Union. This state was born after the fall of Sudan because these guys invaded, because these guys kind of invaded these guys again to make this happen. And then because of the fall of Sudan, the North African Union invaded these countries, which are Mauritania. But you can obviously notice that Chad is missing. Hungary officially joined the alliance. The Ottomans invaded their Romanian puppet states while also invading Moldova, which the Ukrainians joined, and that took some land. And right now, the Ottomans are looking for land near the Arabian Peninsula and Iran, but mostly Iran. And Iran's actually going to be their first victim. Now, what is the stake for Iran? Well, Iran has oil fields, and they want that juicy oil. So they're going to invade in, and at first, this is going to go pretty well. Now, I do want to ignore some mountains, just because it would just be a stalemate, and I want content, so, yeah. Eventually, the Ottoman Navy would launch a campaign to secure the entire Persian coast, using Arabia as an also Navy base. Also covering the entire Iranian coast, while making making 3 landings. All of these landings are for distractions for the Iranian army to focus on, and then they would just launch to their capital. But instead, the Iranian army would focus on the big front, and these guys would all connect up. Now, I noticed a comment in my part 1 where I need lore. So I decided to make lore on why the Turkish in the first place did this. Well, the people in Turkey, especially people had been starting to get into old history, and they believed that a lot of their wrongdoings were because of the people of the countries around them, and they wanted to reform the Turkish former glory, and basically bring conquest and show that the other European powers can't toy with them around. And this is obviously because during history, the Ottomans were toyed around after their prime and land was done, and they want to get revenge. They think that the European powers have done them wrong, and they believe that they are the ultimate supremacist, and that Europe should bow down to their rule, and basically make it so that the Ottomans are the strongest. They are the one person that they want to be able, they think that they should be able to just walk into Russia, and Russia just lets them walk through, and they if the Ottomans asked them, Ukraine, to invade Denmark or something, they would do it. If they asked France to invade the rest of Italy with them, they would do it. But obviously these European powers just wouldn't do that. Also, all world alliances such as NATO, EU, stuff like that, UN, have all been demolished. I don't really know a reason that they would be demolished, but I guess they would just be demolished. But during their campaign into Iran, the Iranians would be very much internally unstable, and with an Iranian pushback in the north near the capital, the Ottomans would begin to form and fund a rebellion, basically to distract their armies, and they want this rebellion to be pro-Ottoman. This rebellion right here, which was made in an area, which was funded in an area to be close to their capital. Eventually the people would actually get very close to their capital. while also focusing down south. But most of their force would be the capital, which they actually would capture it. But Iranian forces would push back against the very unequipped and not really dangerous rebels. Now these rebels would basically just go for an encirclement, and a stalemate would happen. Eventually, the Ottomans would serve to use this useful as they would push closer towards the capital and also make another spearhead. But once again, another rebellion would poke up, but this one is not to go against Iran, but it's with Iran. They're against the Ottoman forces, and they believe that the Ottomans are wrong, are basically like, these guys are very horrible, and the Ottomans have done horrible things to us, so we are going to take this out. The Yellow Rebellion would obviously move southwards because their south operation would be fine, and the invasion of these guys would happen just because of, So with this rebellion in on it, these guys would fall, and the Ottomans would begin to ramp up their military, and eventually the Iranian capital would be captured. Hooray! All fun stuff. Please, bro, get rid of this. And Iran would have to surrender. Alright, time to make the borders, and I'm too lazy to edit this video because it's like really late at night right now for me, and I just don't want to deal with it. Okay, what's better? This color, which is basically the same size as the map borders, or my normal border size? We're gonna do this size for now, just because. So obviously, the Ottomans are gonna get a lot more in this deal, just because they did this so they can move troops to really get places, but they are gonna let the but basically this territory is going to be basically used, so like the people of this city, like if they don't have much population, that's fine, because they're under a full protect pact, and basically like if you attack them, we're going to declare war on you, and it's not going to be nice because, we're going to kill you because we're the Ottomans and we're almighty powerful. So, obviously, the Ottomans have grown in size tremendously. And obviously, I feel like these guys would basically just kind of be like a puppet. Yeah, we'll look at that. But the next people that they're gonna declare war on is these guys. Basically, these guys suck, and the Ottomans basically want an expanded Arabia, because if there's an expanded Arabia, then they can use more coast for navy bases, and they want navy bases because if they have a big navy, because these people still believe that the British have an almighty navy, and also if they want to, take out the world, they're gonna need a big navy, because especially against the U.S., they probably don't, but they don't even really. I don't even think they want to go against the U.S. So not Yemen, but Qatar, UAE, and Oman would fall because they won't be focusing on them. But the Yemen would just be very unstable, and a rebellion would break out, which they would think, we're chill with the Ottomans, and then the Ottomans would invade them, because all they think is that these guys are just land for Arabia, and these guys are Arabians, because this state was made just for Arabian people, because obviously these guys have to just not take over everything, and they know that. But after this, the Arabians become very much more likely to just back into fall more back into a full-on controlled puppet. These guys would be under direct rule. Oh yeah, we're gonna make them that color. But basically, these guys are basically under like direct rule of these guys. Like unlike this state, which is like barely a puppet state. It's like a puppet state, but it's not really a puppet state. Like it's like this color, right? But this one is like right like about to be a puppet. Like this state is like a full like basically like it has an Ottoman leader. Like it had like this stuff has an Ottoman leader. Its economics are controlled by the Ottomans. It's like if it tries to declare war on Edera, it has to like tell the Ottomans that like what if we want to expand? So if like they want to expand but they need Arabian help, they're like, all right, you're gonna help us. We're giving you a bunch of navy. Like their military is basically just what the Ottoman give them. So like if they give them like 10,000 men, like 100 men, that's their army. That's their official new army. But like if they like add 100 men to their army, like their count only because of 100. And if the Ottomans tell them they can't recruit more soldiers, they can't recruit more soldiers. But like if the Ottoman tells them they have to mass produce more soldiers, and if they need to, and if they don't have enough population, they're gonna have to go invade somewhere. Like if they tell them to go invade India, they're gonna go invade India, which their plans are to expand and puppet things eastward, because their conquest is mostly just taking more coast in Africa and expanding into Russia and also Ukraine. But after that, they don't want to expand their genuine empire. They also want lands in Italy, but that's the land for the other attack. But they also want more allies. Also, we're gonna make like this like I'm gonna make a new ally color for like I'll make this a new ally color for the Ottomans. So preemptively, the Ottomans really kind of forced like Morocco to join. They also tell that it's like Spain also joins this alliance. Now this was a shocker, but it really isn't if you really think about it. Because think of it, the Spanish want land, and the Ottomans are giving land. So now the Moroccans are self-explanatory. These guys suck. To this, and to these guys. Spain just wants land in Portugal and in France. Remember, all international ties have been deplenished. So any relationship that these guys had before, gone. Now, if Britain and France reformed an alliance, that's fine. If these guys formed an alliance, fine. But like, no, not like an international alliance. Like, let's say like this is alternate history. Like this is alternate future. So like, let's say these guys got like a pro-Ottoman leader. Like these guys wanted to be allied to the Ottomans. Then, oh, look at that. Now, obviously, the Ottomans would have their own faction, and this faction would basically kind of just be the Ottomans and these guys. But there's going to be a new alliance, and this alliance is going to be demolished right after the war. By the way, if there's a war and the Ottomans win, they're going to be that's demolished. But these guys, but it's these three nations. It's these three nations, mostly Italy, but also another alliance would be formed between Ukraine and these guys because of Hungarian aggression. Now these three are all because of Hungary. These three are because these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 countries are because of Hungarian aggressions. They're also because of Ottoman and Hungarian aggression. These three are just because of Ottoman aggression. So yeah. Ooh. So what war's gonna break out? Well, this is all after Ukraine declares war. Now I might seem this she's for real, but no, the Ukrainians declared war on Hungary, which brought the Ottomans into the war, which brought all these guys into the war. So the Ottomans are going to be moving troops in first. Now, these guys already had troops on the border. There's no denying that they didn't, because they did, and the Ukrainians probably did know that. But the Ottomans are going to have trouble once they reach over here, because the Ukrainian fighting spirit is crazy, bro. So, honestly, they would probably get stopped just because of how many Ukrainians are trying to fight this cause for the Ottomans and get rid of them. Like, there's probably like thousands of propaganda poachers just no, screw Ottomans. Ottomans suck. Ottomans suck. Like, they don't deserve to be here. They don't deserve to be in Europe. They don't deserve to, have this empire. They deserve to collapse and fall into different states where, like, because because here's the thing. Ukraine believes that these alliances should take out Hungary, take out the Ottomans. They want, like, the North Africa take this. They want North Africa. They want France and Portugal to split up Spain. They want, like, Croatia to be Greater Croatia or something. Like, okay, so here's what Ukraine wants from Croatia. They want, because Croatia claimed that they wanted to be Greater Croatia, and that's what Ukraine thought that Greater Croatia was. Now they, like, annexed here, but it was really weird because Ukraine declared war on Hungary because they claimed that this land right over here, like this land, what? It was very weird. But eventually Hungarian troops would start a new front line over the Lviv area, which they would actually take, but Ukrainian forces would just push them back and basically just say, hey, fuck you, you're not going to be able to get into my land. A small battle would happen, like, right here, which would basically just be nothing. It would kind of just be like a small indent also over here, but it would basically need to take over this area, which the Ottomans would actually win. And a landing in Crimea would also happen. But the Ukrainians would basically just put a front line and say, hey, you're done. No. Like, just no. Like, no, this isn't allowed. Basically saying, my god, this is basically just saying that, hey, that isn't allowed. Alright. So basically, they're saying that, hey, this isn't allowed, you shouldn't be doing this, and they believe in full, like, military oppression here. But they are going to push back, because the Ukrainian military strategy for Crimea is very different. But the Ottomans would be 2 steps ahead, landing on basically just multiple sides, connecting up with each other, because they would be threatening this area, and that area is pretty important. So the Ukrainians would have to push this back again, and this would be a very small force of Ottomans, by the way. This would be like a very swift operation to just deal with Ukraine. And when it got destroyed again, they would just do. But this time they would land in here. This time they landed here, and they would actually make progress again. And Crimea would eventually just fall. There would be no saving it, and Ukraine would have to focus otherwise. But they would still save their coast, definitely. Oh my god. So now Ukraine would be looking for allies because they know that this alliance, and they're gonna call in for their allies, which are actually gonna hop in. Like they weren't joking around like this. Like they said, all right, call my homies for real. And their homies would show up. Now again, this would just cut down. For the Ottomans, this is great. This is more land. But at the start of the war, it's not. It's against the Ottomans. It's not on their side. It's the Croats that are pushing in. They were ready for this. The Ottomans weren't ready for another invasion of Bosnia, especially very pro-blue team at this point in time, for now at least, until the Ottomans take it back. But Hungary would be under pressure, so Ottoman troops would have to pull out from Ukraine, but they would still hold a front line, and they would be telling, hey, you guys come up here. And with more troops arriving from different countries, this would kind of be in the fall, especially after Hungary got fully liberated. And with Ottoman troops arriving in bigger numbers, it just wouldn't work out for them, especially how Ottoman and Hungarian troops are making an invasion into this area. And Austria basically seems hopeless. Austria would surrender, and with this, the big alliance gets in this, like the big alliance. And here it comes. Down, 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 bow, 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 bow. Now the Spanish were ready for this. The Spanish were ready for a Portuguese invasion, so they obviously took out Portugal as soon as they found them. The Ottomans were ready for naval invasions, and they were also ready for an invasion of Italy, and they already had troops over here, so they also just moved in from this side. But France was a complete different story. They didn't know that France was in the alliance. They thought, okay, it was just enemies that we have. France wouldn't join. Okay, hooray. Now, yes, the Ottomans could definitely deal damage to these, but they can't. Like, they really can't. Like, the Spanish alone against this is not going to fare well. So the Catalonia immediately breaks away, and France has a good time in Spain for now, while the North Africans are in the Ottoman territory just having a good old time, while also getting ready to invade in the buffer state, because they believe it's rightful North African territory, and that it shouldn't just be a puppet controlled by the Ottomans. So this would actually prove vital, and a naval invasion would happen into the Ottomans, and this would actually prove very vital, as the Ottomans lost the Suez, and they're actually pushing down near the puppet state, and they're like, alright. And they're like, alright, we gotta stop focusing on Europe and start focusing on other areas in Africa and stuff. So eventually now the North Africans would make it pretty far until the Ottomans came around. They were like, okay, we gotta push this back. So obviously Ottoman troops would rush in, and this would be very fast because the Ottomans were ready for an invasion like this. They had stationed troops in Morocco to make a swift push against them, and this would actually be very good. But the coast would be fully defended. A full sweep invasion of the south that would work, and this coast would be easily taken, mostly because of other navies though. So eventually, with a big campaign in the south, which is basically just mostly desert, this would be very, 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 what do I say? This campaign would be kind of useless, but the North Africans would still be very much defending this. They would make a swift pushback against them, as they would be sending a lot of soldiers to this front, actually, which would also which would make a rebellion come out. Yep, you guessed it. The buffer state has now decided to start a rebellion, and The thing was, though, is that these guys were entering into different territories while doing this, but they didn't really care, and they would just keep on going, and they would do this the entire time. They would just keep on doing this, and it wouldn't really be long until the countries just didn't get fed up. They just kind of just let it happen, because what was the point? These guys were just going to, I mean, they weren't doing anything in their country. They were kind of just doing, like, they were kind of just moving through the country, I guess. They didn't mind because they weren't doing anything, but this rebellion would prove very much good, as they were able to make a new front, but they were told just not to invade. They just told to leave them be, or war would strike, because these guys were kind of sympathized along the community. So now that their full state had been kind of like, they stood their ground, but they were gonna get ready. But so the Ottomans had now finally took back all their territory, and a full sweep would happen. Now this, like, it wouldn't be like a full sweep. Now they just wouldn't care about the rebellion. No one would care about this rebellion, because they weren't like, it wasn't like, oh, owie. North African Union would definitely be falling, though. It wouldn't be, it would be very much likely, but in their lastest effort, a bunch of soldiers came over here, and they said, fuck it, fuck the thing. And they went in there, and they killed as many people as they possibly could in this area. Why? I don't know. But they went in here, and they killed a bunch of people, and then they said, you know what, we're just going to keep on doing it. When they got into their homeland, they continued doing it, and then everyone got mad. Boom, boom, boom. People had joined up against this North African Union. They were done with doing this, because the people did kind of like the rebellion. It was a fun group, and no one really cared about it until now. And now that they're killing people, it's like, okay, too far. And we're actually gonna let them expand too. We're gonna put forces, and we're gonna send them, and you know what, we're even gonna make them a sovereign country, and we're gonna let them invade you. So now that troops are being sent to this front line, and it's going pretty well. And the North African Union would say, well, don't they occupy some of your territory? And they would be like, okay, we're not killing them. We're not declaring war on them and killing them. And this would be and that killing spree would be a last-ditch effort, because they believed that this rebellion was a curse to them, and that the rebellion was the main, like, problem to their failures. So they decided that, you know what, we're gonna, for a last-ditch effort, we're just gonna go in there and get rid of as many of them as we can. Now, yes, they were rebelling, but they weren't rebelling against them. They were rebelling in a occupied zone. Yeah, they were rebelling in an occupied zone, but they're not terrorist groups. They're just people doing things that people do. So the North African Union would eventually capitulate, and this would let all troops from over here move up to Europe, because at this point it's gotten very bad, and a bunch of troops would land in Spain and begin to push the French back, mostly Ottoman troops though. But at this point, many people have gained support for this area, and these guys have officially joined. But this guy is just his own alliance. We'll make it that. France would be pushed out of Spain, while Spanish, Ottoman, and just a bunch of troops in general would enter into France. The French just kind of wouldn't be able to do anything. A bunch more new troops in Italy would arrive. Italy would fall, basically, and France would be full on calling for the UK for help now, because they're about to fall. And now that the Germans are getting pushed back, and they just got cut off, and now the French are getting invaded from their own land, and they're close to losing Paris. So they're like, you know what? We're bringing you to the war. So the UK is in the war now, and this is going to be a very tricky war because the Ottoman knows that they're not going to be able to. No, the UK is going to be able to hold out. How long? We don't know. But the UK is definitely just not enough to starve this enormous empire. Like, they have control over the Suez. I mean, but you know what the UK is going to do? They're planning on invading Edinburgh and then moving into here, but they're still going to leave these guys alone. Because what are they going to be able to do against the Ottomans that are basically rolling over Europe at this point? So they're trying to convince Russia. They're like, okay, bro, we're not allies, we're not anything, we just need you to join, please. And the Russians are finally convinced when they say that they'll let them annex Ukraine. Now, obviously, Ukraine's like, what the hell? And Britain's just like, okay, let me handle this. And with Poland capitulating, Russia finally is convinced to join. But the Russians are just not going to do their own. Like, they're going to do their own thing too. And that first thing is get rid of the Finns, because the Finns, they understand that the Finns are now Belarus is definitely already going to join their side. Definitely. Alright. Now let's get this straight. The Baltics are getting ran over. There's no denying that. There goes the Baltics. Whoa, whoa, whoa. 1, 2, 3. Alright. Now Russian forces would enter Finland, but it's stalemate. Stalemate. You wanna know what happens as soon as they enter? Alright, they try to enter over here. Stalemate. Enter over here. Stalemate. And it's just a stalemate. But the Finnish are gonna make some advancements in the north. And they're going to be able to just hold out, and they're going to cut off this area, and then they're going to take over this part, and that's as much as they're going to do, because over here it's just nothingness. But they're going to meet Russian troops out stalemate. God damn it. God damn it. So, obviously, this has been going on for a while, about 33 minutes. Alright, that's the entire video with no edit breaks either. God damn. The Ottomans would invade, and Belarus would also get its first invasion. Now, the Baltics would just not collapse. They would be pretty much forced. They'd be forced to join the blue team. Basically as a roadblock for the Ottomans to go on. And this looks like a specific invasion. Yeah, especially a Caucasus invasion from the Ottomans would be launched, but this invasion would slow down, closer, and then it would speed up again. And then it would slow down, and then it would go up again. But then they would reach Ukraine, and they would be like, okay, we can speed up again. So Russian forces would, and now it's a stabilized front. Now, what are the Ottomans going to do next? Well, obviously, their goal is to just get Russia out of the war, because the UK, they try to make a land invasion, take troops from Russia, move them to UK, take them down, they're dead. So that's what the Ottomans understand. That's what they are going to understand, oh, it's like there's just nothingness over here. So obviously, the Ottomans have a plan for situations. They have been planning this. They have kind of just kept this in the box. And they do understand that if the Russians do anything stupid, then they're just gonna, because they understand that if the Russians make the mistake, their entire eastern front is gonna collapse. But you know what is gonna collapse? Belarus. And Kiev would be taken. So Ukraine would be because Russia would make a mistake of trying to go on offensive in the Baltics, which would fail miserably, and even make them get pushed back in the Baltics. Belarus would be fully taken, and it would basically just be a Russian war. But the Russians would make another mistake and go on the offensive over here. Now, at first, this would look great, and they would actually encircle some troops. But the Ottomans would just do the same thing to them. But this time, with all the manpower they wasted, it would kind of just be not worth it, and Russia and those troops would kind of be murdered. So Russia's in a stalemate now. So now the Ottomans are going to be focusing on the UK. Now they are trying to. Now, here's the thing. Getting Ireland on their side is something that they do want, because it would open up a front, but Ireland would probably be quickly murdered. So what they want to do first, as soon as they land in the UK, get Ireland on the side. And how this is going to happen, well, a naval battle would happen over here with the Ottomans somehow winning, and a small but a very fierce landing UK would happen. That Ireland would get the chance to join, and would obviously invade the UK, would invade Northern Ireland, and with some Ottoman Navy ship and with Ottoman transport boats would land in Scotland. Now, the UK would not be focused on the Irish right now. They would not even be close to focusing on the Irish. The Scotland area would just eventually be captured. Now, this is not only Irish troops, this is also Ottoman troops, because the casualties here would just be enormous. The UK would eventually push back a little bit. And the Scottish border would be met, because apparently this is the Scottish border, but the Irish would argue that it's this. England would be getting reached, and with another landing made in Cornwall, the British would be soon to be at the war, because the British army is not the best thing in the world. It's definitely not even close to being the best. But because the British have always focused on Navy and basically just air and Navy and air and Navy and air and Navy and air and Navy and air and air and Navy. So, not really on troops, just because they haven't needed to. They haven't needed to bring this a massive force of troops that has need to actually fight on their island. Maybe except when the Romans came. But yeah. So the Russians, with seeing that the UK was dying and eventually had collapsed, the Russians, there was no way that they could take on this massive might. But eventually the Russians would have to pull out of Finland. The sheer amount of force of the Ottomans was going to be way too big. So eventually, the Finnish would make a very big push, which would definitely take some boldness. Take St. Petersburg, and also take this, while also moving into this area. but the Russians would make it so that they couldn't. So eventually, the Russians would decide to sign a peace deal with the Ottomans, saying that they don't want anything to do with this and that this was all the West's fault. So now that we've gotten to 40 minutes, let's do a big final peace treaty, and I'm going to edit this part. Alright, so this is the peace treaty borders. Now, some people are not happy, mostly being Russia, as they were promised Ukraine, Belarus, and the Baltics if they won, but that was also by the British if they won. And, by this, the British didn't win. They're now an Irish puppet, being basically just... Now, the Irish have expanded massively, although they don't own London. It's not hard for the Irish to just invade their own puppet state, which would not be that likely. Hungary has expanded very much, and so has the Ottomans actually. But you might notice this rebellion state. They expanded into Sudan, South Sudan, which is now Sudan, and into Ethiopia, but Ethiopia actually and Eritrea, but they just didn't really care, and especially the Ottomans, although they just had to suck up their pride to do so. And the Ethiopians and the Eritrea united, and the North African Union was split up very much, and all of these are new independent states with very much new leaders, and they don't really care. Morocco has also expanded very much, and the North African Union, which is pretty much this country, only has this coast, which Morocco, if wanted to, can just invade, take the coast for themselves, and these guys would just be really poor, probably like as poor as like this area. Or it could be like as poor as like Zimbabwe or something. Who knows? But for African countries, coast is very good for people. I mean, DRC really wanted that coast. But yeah, that's the peace treaty. And that is really gonna do it for part 2. I don't really know what would happen other than this. I mean, all I could see that happens is the entire alliance, because Ireland declares war on their puppets. Like, Ireland declares war on their puppet state and then takes it out, and then Ireland, I guess, just takes over the puppet state. But that's all I can really see happening. Other than that, that's gonna be it for today's video, and I will see you guys on the next one. You guys can comment down below if you guys want part 3, which you guys can do that. But anyways, see you guys on the next video. Goodbye.